Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
Hey, happy Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome back inside The Lock Shop. Nielson and Hustler with you, part of the Nielson Media Coolbet Network, and of course, subscribe to The Lock Shop today on all your podcasting platforms, and if you're watching on my Twitter account, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Very simple. We're just over 150 members here in the last couple of days. All you have to do is go to @LockShopBets. There's a pinned tweet. Retweet that tweet. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you're in the mix for $1,000 cash. Huss, happy Saturday, buddy. How are you, man?
Right back at you, Dusty. I'm great. This is going to be an awesome sports day. We got a Jets matinee this afternoon, 2 p.m. against the Blackhawks. Some great college football, World Series tonight, and then, man, I've been looking forward to tomorrow for a while. Not a great slate of NFL games, to be honest, but if there was going to be a day of kind of a slight, well, put it this way, a weaker sked, let it be on a day with two great CFL playoff games. So,
yes, exactly.
Awesome weekend, and man, I am known we're going to be talking NFL today. I can't wait for that Calgary BC game. I'm so interested to see what will come of that. And hey, you, of course, are doing the call. So I love the fact that we got Calgary +3 because this is going to be like a 1-point game one way or the other. Let's make it happen.
I think so. I think it's going to be a tight one. I'm actually, as soon as we finish this, I'm hitting in the car, heading to the airport, and flying to Vancouver. And it's a good day to leave Edmonton because it's snowing and it's freezing cold today. So I'll be landing in Vancouver in about 3 hours. So it's going to be excellent. I can't wait. Can't wait. Hey, did you hit the play of the day yesterday? Was that Raptors +3.5?
I did hit the play of the day, Raptors +3.5. And I was, I wasn't watching the game. I was out on a bit of an excursion. Shout out to the great people of Transcona. They know how it's done. But yeah, apparently had a nice little comeback in the end, ended up losing by 1. You know what we always say, good teams win, great teams cover. Thank you, Raptors. Another nice week of the daily picks.
Yeah, that worked out extremely well. Yeah, they hit some big shots down the stretch to get that cover for you, buddy. I was just like, oh, he's gonna do it again. He's gonna do it again. All right, so we've got a bunch of props that we're on individually, and then of course we've got our partner parlay. So let's start with that. Let's get into our partner parlay for the week, and you can find this right now. Coolbet Exclusives is where you can hop on the left side when you log on to Coolbet on your phone. You'll find Coolbet Exclusives. You'll find the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. If you're not going to come with us on the Partner Parlay, it's going to be like a +370. We got it at +440. Huss, let's lay this bad boy down. What do we got here?
Well, I mean, we each take a pick, and then we go with one that we like. And I'm in on the Commanders +3.5. I think that, and again, we've talked about this number. Let's just see where it is live right now. If you just go to Coolbet, it's probably showing as 3. Yeah, and I mean, 3 is now +3 for the Commanders is +108, +3.5 is -123. It's sort of been between -118. It got down to 111 earlier. That's actually when I got it for the show picks for the best bets. It's now -123. Listen, we kind of went through this yesterday on the best bets, but I mean, I think the Commanders are very live right now in all of their games. They've got some real good momentum. And you know, the one thing about the Minnesota Vikings is, I mean, they have a great record, and they're a very talented team, and they've just added Hawkinson from Detroit. But you don't really see the Vikings get up and exert their will very often for a full 60 minutes. And, you know, I mentioned how fortunate they were last week against the Cardinals, up 2 late in the game, punting the ball, you know, with that botched punt return. And, you know, they ended up getting it and making it an 8-point game. That could have been very, very different. And I think that Washington right now, with the way that they're playing, the momentum Taylor Heineke's got going, and, you know, an improved defense, can hang with the Minnesota Vikings. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Commanders won this game outright. Obviously, we're not going to put that on the parlay. But I do think this is going to be close, a 3-point game either way. So we got the hook for the partner parlay up to +3.5. That's where I'm going in. And you got New England. And again, we've teased it down a little bit to another very manageable 2.5 number.
Yeah, I got it 4.5 on my best bets. Moved it down to 2.5 just to play it a little bit safer for the parlay. I got a couple of 4-game parlays. I'm going to lay out a little bit later on. I got New England money line on both of them, so I'm all in on the New England Patriots. I mean, I talked about it on our best bets episode. If you missed that, it's available, archived, obviously, on the YouTube channel. So make sure you find that and on all the podcast feeds as well. This is Bill Belichick going up against a quarterback making his second career start on a team that wasn't even good offensively before him and wasn't that great offensively after him. So the Patriots defense, top 5 in sacks, top 5 in interceptions, should be a nightmare against the Colts offensive line that hasn't been able to get anything done. Jonathan Taylor's out. Naheem Hines is traded. I'll be screwed if somehow the Colts pull off the upset, but I'll be very surprised if the Colts keep this within 3. So that's why I really like it. Patriots -2.5. We've seen the Patriots play some really good football at times so far this year. I'm not sure we can say the same about the Colts, and that's even when Matt Ryan was at quarterback. So I'm all over New England this week. I think -2.5 is a pretty safe place to put them in the partner parlay here.
Well, not to mention Jonathan Taylor's now ruled out. I mean, probably their number one offensive weapon, although he's been up and down so far this season. And the number is now 5.5. That's moved from 4.5 on the best bets. So, I mean, I love the fact that we're still getting these numbers and taking it down to 2.5. And honestly, I think this number is probably closer to 6.5 or a touchdown if we didn't have the recent memory of the Patriots completely shitting the bed against the Bears on that Monday Night Football game. So I'm with you on this one. I think the Colts are in tough. I've been kind of out on them for the last little while. Matt Ryan's lost his job. I'm not sure that Sam Ehlinger is going to come in and save the day and beat Bill Belichick
Poor
this
bastard.
week, which leaves us to the final play. Now, we had thought about putting Seattle on it. We both had it on their best bets, but we did get burned on the partner parlay on a similar play a couple weeks ago. So I like this. We both stayed away from this game on the picks for the best bets, but I think we all agree that the Bills are the class right now of the NFL. I mean, the Chiefs will have something to say about it. The Philadelphia Eagles certainly have their hand up over in the NFC, but it is the Bills. Now, this number is 10.5 right now, which reminds me of another line that was 10.5 last week. So we wanted to get this to 9.5. Because I do think the Bills win by a couple multiple scores. But as we saw last week, that 10.5 number is so significant. That was how the Packers ended up covering that number last week and spoiling the perfect week. So we just bought this down by a point, and we got it at Buffalo 9.5. I mean, you can kind of speak to it as well. I just think the Bills are going to keep on rolling. And I mean, the Jets are in a bad place. Zach Wilson is still struggling right now. Sounds like James Robinson's now been added to the injury list. So I think this is going to be a long day for the Jets. And I think the Jets are sort of coming back to earth after that exciting 5-2 start.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the 3 or 4 teams that you listed off, Huss, I'd be pretty comfortable with Buffalo at 9.5 against everybody in the league. You know what I mean? So
not wrong.
You lay it out. The Jets may be coming back down to earth here a little bit. Let's go Buffalo. You're right. We contemplated Seattle. I didn't want to get burned again like we did a couple weeks ago. So New England -2.5, Washington +3.5, Buffalo -9.5. It's available. Coolbet.com. Click on Coolbet exclusives. You'll see the Lock Shop Partner Parlay, and you'll get it boosted up at +440. All right, let's get to some other parlays that we're throwing your way tomorrow. Huss, I like that little underdog special at the bottom, but what else are you laying out here?
Well, you know what? I did a little mini teaser, and, we've had some good luck adjusting a few of the lines past key numbers. And listen, I kind of laid out why I like Kansas City to absolutely crush Tennessee on the weekend. We took that number down to 7.5. That was the lowest we could get. And then 2 other significant favorites. The Bills took that down to 6.5. I'm a little more nervous about Cincinnati with the full 6.5, but I do really think that they come back with a big bounce back game against a overmatched Carolina team at home and win by a touchdown. So these are sort of the big favorites, teased down a little bit with the numbers, and we're still getting +313. So I've got that one locked in. And I kind of went the other way. And listen, the Indy pick to +7 is a pick essentially that they can kind of hang around, get a few plays. Like just the New England's offense, the way it is right now, I'm not sure they blow anybody out. I like the under in this game, to be honest. So we got Indy up to +7.5 to hang around. We got an extra half point on the Rams at +3.5, and we'll talk about that game in a second. And then got the Miami Dolphins, who are 4.5-point road favorites, down to 2.5. So put those three together, and you're still getting close to 4-1, +381. In fact, that's very similar to what the real odds are for the Partner Parlay, which shows you the value we're getting on that +440 number on what we just laid out. So Indy +7.5, Rams +3.5, Miami -2.5 is +381. But yes, the parlay that I'm excited about, and I always love doing these things, I didn't find another game that I really thought was a truly live underdog. So I'm just going to go with the 2-gamer. We kind of laid out the Commanders. The Vikings are going to have a disappointing loss sooner or later. Mark my words. And this could very well be the week with the momentum that Washington has going on, the fact that it is in Washington, and the momentum the Commanders are rolling with right now. And then there's the Rams. And I heard Bill Simmons, I was listening to Simmons this morning, and he described this Rams-Bucks game as like a boxing match between two dead people. One of these teams is going to have to show a little bit of signs of life. And man, for the Bucks, they're 3-5. They go to Hamburg, Germany after this. Tom Brady, man, what he's going through with right now, off the field, on the field, it's got to be the most difficult year of his life, as a professional quarterback, I would imagine. So I just don't have a lot of. Oh, and by the way, the Bucks are also on pace to have the worst rushing attack of all time. They can't run the football. It's all on Brady right now. And listen, it just hasn't been going well. As much as I was down on the Rams going into the Niner game and always think that the Niners are going to beat the Rams, they also are somewhat live against some of these other teams. And I'll tell you what, Sean McVay knows full well the situation his team is in. And I think he comes up with a game plan that's going to keep them in this game. So I do love them to keep it close. That's why we got it +3.5. But I could absolutely see them winning this football game. So looking for a couple money line underdogs to put together on a parlay. Love the Commanders. The Rams are going to be the other team. And just those two teams to win +464. I'm in on it.
All right, on my other side, I'll start with the one that's +449 because two of the same games and what you did. Cincinnati down to 6.5, Buffalo down to 6.5. They got great matchups. They're pretty good football teams. Win by a touchdown. I think that's very, very likely. Then New England money line. I've laid out my New England case. I'm on them to win that game. And then I'm going to throw Atlanta. I moved Atlanta down to 7.5 here against the Chargers team that's really banged up. Really banged up. No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, no Donald Parham. It's basically just a steady diet of Austin Eckler with a little sprinkling of Everett and the Canadian Josh Palmer. So I'm not expecting the Chargers. I'm expecting Eckler to have a huge game. I'm not expecting the Chargers overall to have a huge game. So I felt pretty good. I think it's like 3. I think I bought like 4.5 points here and moved Atlanta down to +7.5. So I'm going to throw Atlanta +7.5 on that ticket with Cincy and Buffalo at 6.5. New England money line will get you +449. And then my other one, Miami money line against Chicago. You moved Miami down to 2.5 from the 4.5. I figured I'll just go money line. I do think they win that game. I think Justin Fields might find a way to keep it somewhat close. I mean, two quarterbacks, younger quarterbacks at completely different spots. Like Fields is throwing the ball to Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, and two is throwing it to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, which is just insane. But, Miami, they're on the road. So kind of scared a little bit of the 4.5, but I'll take Miami money line. Got New England money line in there again. Moved Vegas. They're a slight favorite. I moved them all the way down, +3.5 on the road against the Jags. Here we go with Vegas again. And then Green Bay, Detroit, over 43.5. I moved that thing down basically as far as you can move it down. I think Green Bay and Detroit easily combined for 45 points this week. So I'm going to be on Green Bay, Detroit over 43.5, Raiders +3.5, then New England, Miami money line, and that'll get you +336 tomorrow, buddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm on that. The Green Bay Detroit game is interesting. I was considering putting the Lions in at +3.5 in a couple of other parlays. Obviously, I've got them in the original parlay with the 4 best bets that just missed by half a point last week. But I'm with you. I mean, I think that I think it's a huge game for Detroit just to come up big in front of their fans. We know they're not going to the playoffs. They may very well lose this game, but they got to hang with the Packers. The Packers have been so bad. If they go out and get smoked by Green Bay, I think we're pretty much looking at the beginning, if we haven't already seen the beginning of the end of the kneecap biting era for Lions football right now. And listen, Aaron Rodgers has to get something done. And who better to do that against the Lions? So I'm with you. Let's get some points.
All right, touchdown scores, buddy. We each got a couple guys that we're going to bring to the table, and we've got Higbee and we got Jerick McKinnon. I've got McKinnon sitting around on a couple of fantasy benches, just waiting for them to be like, okay, it's go time for Jerick McKinnon. Because I know he's getting rather heavily involved in that offense. I like this at plus 225.
Well, McKinnon, and listen, there's a few guys that I like, but I was kind of looking in. I know Travis Etienne is minus 133. You've got a lot of real juice on some of the guys that, are more likely. So, hey, I went with one pick on Thursday, Dallas Goedert. He got in. Maybe we're getting a little greedy going in excess of 2-1 for these two guys, but we're going to do it. We'll start off with McKinnon. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, he has been far more involved in the Chiefs offense. And I think Andy Reid realizes that McKinnon is sort of that dynamic back that adds much more in the passing game than Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Isaiah Pacheco. Edwards-Helaire has been okay, but as a first-round pick, he was really thought to be a dominant player, and that hasn't happened yet. And you saw a few weeks ago when McKinnon started getting the football, they kept on giving it to him. And I think this is sort of a game where everyone's going to get some. I think they will, really spread the ball out as Mahomes normally does. And I think they're going to put up a bunch of points. So I like McKinnon. I think he'll be more active in the backfield this week. I do think it'll be somewhat of a split, but I think he's also going to have the benefit of getting some screen passes, which I think could certainly be effective against the Tennessee defense. So at plus 225, I like McKinnon. And then my other pick is Tyler Higbee. And I'll be honest, I was sort of taken aback by the fact that it's plus 230. It seemed like such a big number for a guy that was getting so many targets earlier on in the year. Of course, Cooper Kupp was banged up last week. And Higbee had his worst game of the year. Drops, I believe he popped one out that ended up being a pick.
Yeah.
A big drop. And I want to say a fourth down that essentially ended it for him. So to me, you see veteran quarterbacks like a Matt Stafford, when you have a guy that they've really been leaning on, have a disaster of a game, I think often they'll go back to him early and often and really try and re-engage him. Because frankly, talked about the Rams receiving core all year long. They need Higbee to be a big part of that offensive attack. So I think Matt Stafford kind of tries to go to him. I might actually even sprinkle on first touchdown for Tyler Higbee in this game as well. But, considering how much action he was getting before, and he's one of the few reliable guys that this season Matt Stafford has thrown to, I love the value on the plus 230. So we're going with a couple of longer shots. If we can get one, we're in good shape, but still more than double the money. So let's go plus 230 on Higbee and 225 on Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, there was a few guys that I looked at that were like minus 130, minus 120. I was like, I'll stretch it out a little bit today. So Antonio Gibson, Heineke, and we've talked about it both on our fantasy football extravaganza and this one. Heineke's been really good for Terry McLaurin. He's also been very good for Antonio Gibson, or they're just deciding to work in Antonio Gibson a little bit more, because Antonio Gibson started the season okay, then fell off a little bit. Then they brought in Brian Robinson, and you're like, it's the Brian Robinson show now. But Gibson has been heavily involved in the offense the last couple of weeks. So I like Gibson at plus 165 to find the end zone today. We've been on Terry McLaurin the last couple of weeks, but I think Antonio Gibson, passing game, running game, he's involved in all aspects of this offense. And Gibson frustrates me because when you watch him, you can tell he's a hell of a talent. Like it hasn't really clicked regularly, consistently just yet, but Gibson can play, man. He's a threat in a number of different aspects, including the return game. They mix him in a little bit as well.
Well, this happens, and from a fantasy perspective, it happens all the time. And we see a guy that, is a very startable asset for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden they draft someone else at that position, and we kind of move on from those guys before they're actually ready to move on themselves. Now, the start of this season was tough, but I really attribute most of that to the quarterback play of Carson Wentz. I mean, and their inability to establish the run game, have consistent passes, and just the fact that, he was turning the ball over both picks. And frankly, the team wasn't doing a very good job holding the football on as well earlier on. But over the past few weeks, you're exactly right. I mean, this offense is looking more like the Commanders offense that went to the playoffs in the last couple of years. So I'm back with Antonio Gibson. I still think Robinson has a bright future next year. I mean, if you got him in a dynasty league or something, make sure to hang on to him. But I think over the next little bit, with the way the Commanders are rolling, and if they can continue to win some football games and stay in the playoff mix, I think Ron Rivera leans on Gibson and sort of trusts him the most based on what he's seen in the past and what he's been doing in the last few games.
His last 2 games, he's got a receiving touchdown in each of them, and he had 7 targets last week, caught all 7 of them. So Antonio Gibson, plus 165, trying to make it 3 games in a row. And then I'm going to go with Robert Tonyan against my Detroit Lions. Interesting stat. I was putting up the hockey rink out back yesterday, and I was listening to a fantasy football podcast, and they laid it out. Like the Green Bay Packers have only been inside the 10, less than 10 times this year. Like, most of their damage has been getting done from outside of that when they do have some damage. Tonyan has a touchdown in 3 straight games against the Detroit Lions. I don't know what it is about the Detroit Lions, but Aaron Rodgers and Robert Tonyan connect 3 times in the last 3 games against the Detroit Lions. This guy has found the end zone. So you get him at 2-1. There's not a lot of other red zone targets when you get down there. Maybe it's Aaron Jones in the backfield and a bunch of wide receivers that he doesn't really trust. So considering they've had success against Detroit in the past, I'm going to roll with Tonyan here at plus 200, Huss.
Love it. Love it. I think Tanyan's due for a big game. In fact, I'll be honest, I'm somewhat surprised that he hasn't become more of a borderline elite tight end right now, just because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers doesn't seem to be connecting with any of his other receivers. I mean, Tanyan's been around there for a couple of years. He's had some big games. So I think it's due. He's due to have this happen. And, considering what's happening with the rest of those receivers, 2-1 on Big Bob Ton against the Lions, I'll take it.
All right, there you go. That's Props and Parlays Saturday. Once again, if you're watching on my Twitter account or you're listening to the podcast, if you want to get in the mix for $1,000 cash, not credit, not GCs or anything, $1,000 cash, go to Lock Shop Bets on Twitter, at Lock Shop Bets, retweet the tweet that's at the top of the page, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know comments are now on, so I wonder if notifications are now working as well. So that's something we'll have to take a look at, because for the first time today, we had a few comments pop up. The chat window was open, so we'll see. If not, we'll get that sorted out here. But hey, before we go, Huss, you had a pretty important tweet yesterday that involves the Lock Shop, Winnipeg Sports Talk, Cool Bet. Tell the people about this, just in case they don't know.
Yeah, folks. I mean, pretty exciting. I still can't believe it. Heading to Doha, Qatar for a couple weeks to follow Canada's men's national team in their return to the World Cup. Going out with Jake Boland Moss, who we all know from the Lock Shop, popping in from Cool Bet. JBM and I are going to be heading out, I guess, 2 weeks today, Saturday the 19th. So I will be watching, hopefully, the Bombers win another Grey Cup in the Middle East. And I'll be doing Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'll be hooking up with you in the Lock Shop. Hope the internet's good in Qatar. That's all I have to say, because we got a lot of work to do. And then we're going to be doing a lot of fun content as well, hooking up with Canada fans from around the world at the World Cup. I'll probably be doing a number of food reviews, because nothing gets the clicks more than that. And to be honest, that's right up my alley. So anyways, it's going to be absolutely a trip of a lifetime. Cannot wait for it. Few guys I wish would have been able to be coming, but circumstances has dictated otherwise. And listen, you will be in Regina for the Grey Cup, so I might need to get you to just FaceTime me for the entire game. We'll see how I'm going to be able to get it done. But
doesn't sound like I'll be doing anything else. So I'll FaceTime you with the entire game. We can make that happen. No, that's going to be awesome. Obviously, we'll have a bunch more episodes before Huss takes off, but very cool for the Lock Shop to have a presence down there at the World Cup, where I saw Alphonso Davies left the game today with a hamstring issue. Did you see that?
Dude, that was an absolute that's a big scare. We need Fonzie. We need Alphonso Davies.
Yeah.
Canada's first game is against Belgium on the 23rd.
Big test.
Then they get Croatia on the 27th. I mean, I guess worst case scenario is Davies can't play. But, I mean, if he wasn't able to play in that first game, I think it's somewhat advantageous for Canada that their first game is against Belgium. Belgium's one of the top teams in the world, but Canada will be a huge underdog. And no one, I think, really expects them to come out of that with points. But the Croatia game, listen, if you really want to give yourself a great chance of making it to the knockout stage, if you can get a point, even a draw against Croatia, and then it sets up the all-important game against Morocco, where if you win and can get to 4 points, you're probably safely into the knockout round. It's going to be historic, the return. There's been a lot of talk about everything happening off the field for Canada soccer, but these men who qualified in that incredible run through a CONCACAF qualifying are ready to go, and we're going to be there. And by the way, folks, I mean, many of you already follow me on Twitter. Follow my Instagram at Hustlerama, same tag, and make sure you're following the Coolbet Canada socials, both Twitter and Instagram, and not even for World Cup, but Justy and I are also taking turns every day, Monday to Friday. You'll get a daily pick from the lock shop, and got a couple really, really good weeks. So you get the daily content, and then myself and Jake will be throwing all sorts of fun stuff up from the World Cup in Qatar beginning on, basically right after the Grey Cup. November 21st will be the first show that we're doing, and November 23rd is the first game day for Canada. So prayers up for Fonzie, Alphonso Davies, and it's going to be a fun few weeks for us in the lock shop, and of course the Winnipeg Sports Talk shows as well.
Exciting times, no doubt about it. Huss, enjoy all the action on Sunday, and we'll talk on Monday morning, buddy.
Hey, have a great call tomorrow afternoon.